Is there anything that the Singapore Sports Council is doing at the moment to help promote new and upcoming sports such as like tchoukball, touch rugby, ultimate frisbee, for instance?
They are definitely doing something. I mean, there are certain events which are endorsed by the Singapore Sports Council that I know. But the question is, the pie is finite. You know, there's this X amount of money that the Sports Council gets every year from the government to give to the various national sports associations. I think there, at last count, there's 40-something, 48, 49 national sports associations in Singapore. And they get anything from $10,000 to maybe $2 million a year in funding. So if we give sort of an open door to so-called up-and-coming sports or niche sports, then that means that other sports will have to lose a little bit of their pie. So it's a thing that they have to balance. I mean, wrestling, modern pentathlon, things like sports like that have come on to, and fencing, for instance, have all gotten funding in recent years, more funding especially. And I think it depends on how the sport, niche sport grows globally. I mean, if tchoukball ends up at the Olympics, if ultimate frisbee is a SEA Games event, you know, then there's more of an argument for these sports to receive public funding and to be better supported. But I think at the moment what these sports can do is to do their own grassroots work, maybe reach out to students like you, organize your own events, get more and more people interested to the point where the Sports Council can no longer ignore the fact that ultimate frisbee, I see a guy holding a frisbee there, is the biggest sport in Singapore. You know, then you can't ignore it. Then you have to support it. So at the moment, if there's not enough critical mass, then, you know, I guess you just have to wait.
Singapore Sports School, they've been losing most of their sports to other schools. Yeah. So, do you find that there's a problem in this? Furthermore, do you think that does this show that the government's efforts in promoting sports in areas such as sports school, this kind of methods in developing the athletes, do you think that they are insufficient or inefficient?
Well, I think it's, first of all, it's a good thing. The fact that I think I remember at one point there was this criticism or complaint that the sports school was winning everything, right? So the fact that the other schools are giving them a run for their money, that sort of proves that we do have talent here, as long as they're willing to put their heart and soul into the sport that they're pursuing. What was the second part of your question again?
I mean, the thing is that sports school is supposed to develop our best sports talents to send over to other countries to compete. But if they can't even beat in Singapore, does that mean that it's inefficient?
Okay, which sports are you talking specifically about?
There are many.
For instance?
Track and field.
Track and field. Okay, but Hwa Chong very good in track and field, right? So, okay, the sports school is not a be-all and end-all of Singapore sports. I mean, they call it the Singapore Sports School, but it is not the only school that does well. I mean, a school like Montfort, for instance, is very good at badminton. You have obviously your ACS and your SAs who are very good at rugby. So there will always be certain schools that are very good in certain sports, like Hwa Chong and athletics. So, and I think that is important, because if everyone says, oh, you know what, you want to do sports, just go to sports school, you will limit ourselves to only just that several hundred students or that they take in every year. Whereas there are a lot more students out there, those that want to go to elite schools, to good schools, but also want to do well in sports, gives them the option as well. So it's not just, it's an entire ecosystem, with the sports school part of the ecosystem, but Hwa Chong is just as much a part of it as well. So I think it's a good thing that other schools are beating them, and this means that they have to raise their own game, they can't be complacent, and I think Singapore sports will grow as a whole.
May I know, is there any particular event that inspired you to become a sports journalist?
I think that when I was growing up, I went with my father to watch a couple of matches in India. In India, cricket is obviously huge, and I remember going to watch cricket with him, and I remember him taking me to tennis matches when India was playing against Australia, and so I always enjoyed sport, and I played a lot of sport, but I think almost more than that, more than sport, I like writing. I mean, I enjoy writing, I enjoy reading, I enjoy literature, not just on sport, just general reading. So I think for me it was a good mix between my love for writing and my love for sport. So I think it came together very well. But I don't think it was like one particular incident that made me do it. But I just think You have a love for sport and you have a love for writing, and then you just put them both together.
How do Singapore recruit athletes from overseas to be part of the Singapore team? As in, what are the factors of considerations beside the ability of the athlete in that certain sports? Are there any things involved in the selection process?
Different sports have different methods. Table tennis and badminton, I know that they have contacts in China and in Indonesia, in Thailand as well. So what happens is that we have officials who know the scene well, who go over, talk to their contacts over in China or wherever, and take a look at some of the talent, some of their up-and-coming talent. Maybe a 10-year-old who's playing table tennis. I mean, Li Jiawei herself was from Beijing, I think, and she was scouted from there as well. So we have officials going over to take a look at who they are. Of course, they're not quite the finished product. If they were, China or Indonesia would never let them go. But they are works in progress, or maybe they're good enough for their provincial team, but they're not good enough for the national team yet. They want to make a living here. They want to come to Singapore and study. So these are some of the factors they consider. In football, it's a bit different. You have a lot of, for example, like Egmar Gonçalves, Agu Kashmir. A lot of them started their careers in the S-League. They proved themselves here. They lived and worked here for several years, and then they're sort of evaluated by the national selectors, and that sort of gives them the criteria to look at whether to choose these athletes or not. Whether or not there isn't a hard and fast rule for across all sports, but I think the Singapore Sports Council looks at a variety of factors, which is for example, how good they are benchmarked against the rest of the world. Are they able to integrate to Singapore society? Are they able to give back after they're done with sports? And whether there is potential. And potential is something that is very hard to quantify. And that's why you've had certain failures sort of slip through in the past, but I think the success stories are more than made up for them.
Do you think that events such as the Olympics is actually causing the focus on sports to be more on winning as compared to fair play and sportsmanship? Because after all, countries are competing against each other, and there's a ranking system where countries are ranked according to the number of gold medals that their athletes are able to win for the country.
Well, I think generally the culture across sport is winning is everything. And I of course, I disagree with it. I think winning is very important. I think winning is, for many reasons, why you compete. But at the Olympics, actually, it's a funny thing. The Olympics has a lot of, negative aspects, but there are some great aspects about the Olympics. And the Olympics is actually one of the events which promotes fair play, I think. And they actually, on the Olympic website, they don't actually keep tallies of gold medals. That's actually done by other people. But actually on the Olympic website, you won't find it. It's just that nations want to compete with each other, so there's always a medal table. But the Olympics does not promote itself as a competition between countries. Not really. So they don't keep medal tables. But you're right, everybody else keeps medal tables, and everybody boasts, well, I won 20 medals, or I won 10 bronze or whatever. And that is actually quite a ridiculous, the medal table is actually quite a ridiculous thing in my view. I mean, I understand why people like it, because they want to see where their country is, how well did you do. But, America has, I don't know what America's population is, over 250 million. And, Australia has 25 million or 22 million, and they do exceedingly well for 22 million. We have only 6 million. China has over 1 billion. So how do you compare? And some countries in Africa have, their facilities are very poor. Or in certain third world nations, their facilities are very poor. So one gold medal for them means much more than maybe 10 gold medals from America. So it's difficult to do that. But you're right. I mean, people love medal tables. They love to boast about it.
Do you think that Tiger Woods can ever make a comeback?
I think it's a complicated question, because I'll tell you why. Everybody writes, he won a tournament I think a couple of weeks ago or whatever, and people say that this is with any great player. This could be even with Federer. Federer is very similar to him. That people will say that Tiger Woods is back. I never understand what they mean by Tiger Woods is back. Do they mean he's back winning? Yeah, I think Tiger Woods can win again. But Tiger Woods will never play at the level he played again. That is not possible. I think all athletes, great athletes, Michael Phelps in swimming, Of course, his period to be great is much shorter. But somebody like Federer, how Federer played between 2003 to say 2007, he can't play at that level again. His body, his fitness, his confidence will never be the same. I think with Tiger Woods, it's the same thing. I think he'll win. I think he even may win a major, but he cannot play at that level again. That level you reach, you can never reach that level again. That comes from a very short period of your career.
Do you have a favorite athlete? And if you do, why is he your favorite athlete?
You mean as of now, all time, or what?
All time?
I would say I have three favorite athletes. One is Federer. I love Federer because for two reasons. One is he plays very beautifully. He's a very elegant athlete. I like that. He's very stylish, apart from being brilliant. And I think he behaves very well. I think that for me that's very important. The other would be Michael Jordan. I think again, Michael Jordan was a very good mix between the athletic and the aesthetic. He was very beautiful and very competitive. And my third would be Muhammad Ali, who is a boxer, which I don't know if you know about. It was, and because he was a great boxer, because again he was very artistic and he was very tough. So I think these three, very similar in some ways, very beautiful and very tough. I think they would be my favorite athletes.
In China, they have this system that at the age of 16 or 17, I mean they train all the way from young, and at the age of 16 or 17, they actually are given the opportunity. If they're good enough, they'll continue as professional sportsmen. If they're not, then they'll be given a chance to study in a university in maybe sports-related courses, like being a nutritionist or something like that. So I'm thinking, why don't Singapore adopt such a policy so that we get a wider spectrum of sportsmen to come?
So you're saying that, this Chinese system where athletes are going full-time until they're 16 and then they're not good enough?
Yeah, their intensity is about like 3 training. I'm under the impression that they're under 2 trainings a week. I've been there before, I've gone under them.
Well, I remember reading this story about this former Chinese athlete who ended up begging in the streets after his or her career was over. Yeah, so, people obviously slip through. But in Singapore, if you are going to do full-time sports until the age of 16 and then they decide you're not good enough, after that you would be, let's say, 5 years behind the rest of your peers. That would be a problem, I think. And also at 16, how do you judge whether someone is good enough? Someone might not bloom until they're 20 years old, 21. In football, your best years could be when you're 28. So if you're 16 and you decide, hey, this guy's not going to make it as a footballer, but he's got another 10 years ahead of him to prove himself, so that might not be entirely fair. And I don't think that system might work in Singapore at the moment. Yeah.